Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritcham Naram Jaiva Narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayet. Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata-sevayā. Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Let me know if you see the screen, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Mhm. Okay, give me one sec. We are ready. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, verse number 26. Kalavritya tu mayayam gunamayyam adhokshaja purushenatma bhutena viryam adatta viryavan. The Supreme Living Being in his feature as the transcendental Purusha incarnation, who is the Lord's plenary expansion, impregnates the material nature of three modes, and thus by influence of eternal time the living entities appear. ततो भवन् महत्तत्त्वम् अव्यक्तात् कालचोदितात् विज्ञानात्मात्मदेहस्थं विश्वं विज्ञं तमोनुदः. Thereafter, influenced by the interactions of the eternal time, the supreme sum total of matter called the Mahat Tattva became manifested, and in this Mahat Tattva, the unalloyed goodness, the Supreme Lord, sowed the seeds of universal manifestation out of his own body. सोऽप्यंश गुणकालात्मा भगवद्दृष्टि गोचरः आत्मानं व्यकरोद् आत्मा विश्वस्याय शिश्रक्षया. Thereafter, the Mahat Tattva differentiated itself into many different forms as the reservoir of would-be entities. The Mahat Tattva is chiefly in the mode of ignorance and it generates the false ego. It is a plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead with full consciousness of creative principles and time for fructification. महत्तत्वाद् विकुर्वाणाद् अहं तत्त्वं व्यजायत कार्यकारणकर्तात्मा भूतेन्द्रियमनोमय वैकारिकस्तैजश्च तामस चेति अहं त्रिधा. Mahatattva, or the great causal truth, transforms into false ego, which is manifested in three phases: cause, effect, and the doer. All such activities are on the mental plane and are based on the material elements, gross senses, and mental speculation. The false ego is represented in the three different modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. अहं तत्त्वाद् विकुर्वाणं मनो वैकारिकात् अभूत् वैकारिकाश्च ये देव अर्थाभिन्व्यञ्जनं यतः. The false ego is transformed into mind by interaction with the mode of goodness. All the demigods who control the phenomenal world are also products of the same principle, namely the interaction of false ego and the mode of goodness. तैजसान्द्रियाणि एव ज्ञानकर्ममयानि च. The senses are certainly products of the mode of passion in false ego, and therefore philosophical speculative knowledge and fruitive activities are predominantly products of mode of passion. तामसो भूत सूक्ष्मादिर्यतः खं lingam atmanah. The sky is a product of sound, and the sound is transformation of egoistic ignorance. In other words, the sky is the symbolic representation of the Supreme Soul. Kala mayam cha yogena bhagavad vikshitam नभः नभसोऽनुसृतं स्पर्शन् विकुर्वन् निर्ममे nilam. Thereafter, the personality of Godhead glanced over the sky, partly mixed with eternal time and external energy, and thus developed the touch sensation from which the air in the sky was produced. अनिलोऽपि विकुर्वाणो नभसोरु बलान्वितः ससर्ज रूपतन्मात्रं ज्योतिर्लोकस्य लोचनम्. Thereafter, the extremely powerful air interacting with the sky generated the form of sense perception, and the perception of form transformed into electricity, the light to see the world. अनिलेनान्वितं ज्योतिर्विकुर्वत् परवीक्षितम् आतत्ताम्बोरसमयं कालमायांशयोगतः. When electricity was surcharged in the air and was glanced over by the Supreme at that time by a mixture of eternal time and external energy, there occurred the creation of water and taste. ज्योतिषाम्भो न ज्योतिषाम्भोऽनुसंसृष्टं विकुर्वद्ब्रह्मवीक्षितं महीं गन्धगुणाम् आदात् कालमायांशयोगतः. Thereafter, the water produced from electricity was glanced over by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and mixed with eternal time and external energy. Thus, it was transformed into earth, which is qualified primarily by smell. भूतानां नभ आदीनं यद्यद् भव्यावरावं sorry let me say भूतानां नभ आदीनां यद्यद् भव्यावरावरं तेषां संस्मर्गात् यथा sankhyaṁ gunan viduhu. O gentle one, of all the physical elements, beginning from the sky down to the earth, all the inferior and superior qualities are due only to the final touch of the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ete devah kala Vishno kalamayam shalinganah nanatvat sva kriyanisha prochuh pranjalayo vibhum. The controlling deities of all the above mentioned physical elements are empowered expansions of Lord Vishnu. They are embodied by eternal time under the external energy, and they are his parts and parcels. Because they were entrusted with different functions of universal duties and were unable to perform them, they offered fascinating prayers to the Lord as follows. देव उवाच नमाम ते देव परारविन्द पदारविन्दं प्रपन्नतापोपशामतापत्रं यन्मूलकेत यतयोनुज sorry again. नमामते देव पदारविन्दं प्रपन्नतापोपशमातपत्रं यन्मूलकेता यतयोऽञ्जसोरु संसारदुःखं बहिर्उत्क्षिपन्ति. The demigod said, O Lord, your lotus feet are like an umbrella for the surrendered souls, protecting them from all the miseries of material existence. All the sages under that shelter throw off all material miseries. We therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet. धातर यद अस्मिन् भव ईश जीवास ताप त्रयेनाभिहात्थान शर्म आत्मन् लभन्ते भगवं स्तवाङ्घ्रि छायां स विद्याम् अथ आश्रयेम. O Father, O Lord, O Personality of Godhead, the living entities in the material world can never have any happiness because they are overwhelmed by the three kinds of miseries. Therefore, they take shelter of the shade of your lotus feet, which are full of knowledge, and we also thus take shelter of them. मार्गन्ति यत्ते मुखपद्मनिढैश्चण्डः सुपर्णैर्ऋषयो विविक्ते यस्याघ मर्षोड मर्षोद सरिद्वरायाः पदं पदं तीर्थपदः प्रपन्ना. The lotus feet of the Lord are by themselves the shelter of all places of pilgrimage. The great clear minded sages carried by the wings of the Vedas, always search after the nest of your lotus-like face. Some of them surrender to your lotus feet at every step by taking shelter of the best of the rivers, the Ganges, which can deliver one from all sinful reactions. यच्छ्रद्धया श्रुतवत्या च भक्त्या संसृज्यमाने हृदये वदाय ज्ञानेन वैराग्यबलेन धीरा व्रजेम तत्तेन सरोजपीतं पीठम्. Simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion, and by meditating upon them within the heart, one at once becomes enlightened with knowledge, and on the strength of detachment, one becomes pacified. We must therefore take shelter of the sanctuary of your lotus feet. विश्वस्य जन्मस्थितिसंयमार्ते कृतावतारस्य पदाम्बुजं ते व्रजेम सर्वे शरणं यदीशा मृतं प्रयच्छति अभयं स्वपुंसाम्. O Lord, you assume incarnations for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation, and therefore we all take shelter of your lotus feet because they always award remembrance and courage to your devotees. यत्सानुबन्धे सति देहगेहे ममाहम् इति ऊढा दुराग्रहाणां पुंसां सुदूरं वसतोऽपि पुर्यां भजेम तत्ते भगवन् पदाब्जम्. O Lord, persons who are entangled by undesirable eagerness for the temporary body and kinsmen, and who are bound by thoughts of mine and I, are unable to see your lotus feet, although your lotus feet are situated within their own bodies. But let us take shelter of your lotus feet. तान्वैः असद्वृत्तिभिरक्षिभिर्ये पराहृतान्तर्मनसः परेश अथो न पश्यन्ति उरुगाय नूनं ये ते पदन्यास विलासलक्ष्यः. O great Supreme Lord, offensive persons whose internal vision has been too affected by external materialistic activities cannot see your lotus feet, but they are seen by your pure devotees, whose one and only aim is to transcendentally enjoy your activities. पानेन ते देवकथासुधायाः प्रवृद्धभक्त्या विशदाशयाये वैराग्यसारं प्रतिलभ्य बोधं यथाञ्जसान्वियुरकुण्ठदिष्ण्यम्. O Lord, persons who, because of their serious attitude, attain the stage of enlightened devotional service, achieve the complete meaning of renunciation and knowledge, and attain the Vaikuntha Lok in the spiritual sky simply by drinking the nectar of your topics. तथा परे चात्मसमाधियोगा बलेन जीवा प्रकृतिं बलिष्ठां त्वामेव धीरा पुरुषं विशन्ति तेषां श्रमास्यान् न तु सेवयाते. Others who are pacified by means of transcendental self-realization and have conquered over the modes of nature by dint of strong power and knowledge also enter into you, but for them there is no much pain, whereas the devotee simply discharges devotional service and thus feel no such pain. Let me read again, sorry. Others who are pacified by means of transcendental self realization and have conquered over the modes of nature by dint of strong power and knowledge also enter into you, but for them there is much pain, whereas the devotee simply discharges devotional service and thus feels no such pain. तत्ते वयं लोकशिश्रक्षयाद्य त्वयानुसृष्टास्त्रिभिरात्मभिस्म सर्वे वियुक्ताः स्वविहारतन्त्रं न शक्नुमस्तत् प्रतिहर्तवे हर्तवे ते. O original person, we are therefore but yours only. Although we are your creations, we are born one after another under the influence of the three modes of nature, and for this reason we are separated in action. Therefore, after the creation, we could not act concertedly for your transcendental pleasure. यावद् बलिं तेजहरां काले यथा वयं चान्नम् अधाम यत्र यतो भयेषां त इमे हि लोका बलिं हरन्तो अन्नम् अदन्ति अनूहः. O unborn one, please enlighten us regarding the ways and means by which we can offer you all enjoyable grains and commodities so that both we and all living entities in this world can maintain ourselves without disturbance and can easily accumulate the necessities of life both for you and for yourselves, for ourselves, sorry. त्वं नः सुराणाम् असिसान्वयानां कूटस्थ आद्यः पुरुषः पुराणः त्वं देव सत्यां गुणकर्मयोनौ रेतस्त्व अजायां कविम् आददेजः. You are the original personal founder of all the demigods and the orders of different gradations, yet you are the oldest and are unchanged. O Lord, you have no source or superior. You have impregnated the external energy with the semen of the total living entities, yet you are unborn. तथो वयं मत् प्रमुखा यद् अर्थे बहुविमात्मान् करवाम किं ते त्वं नः स्वचक्षुः परिदेहि शक्त्या देवा क्रियार्थे यद् अनुग्रहाणाम्. O Supreme Self, please give us, who are created in the beginning from the Mahatattva, the total cosmic energy, your kind directions on how we shall act. Kindly award us your perfect knowledge and potency so that we can render you service in the different departments of subsequent creation. Thank you very much. Here ends the fifth chapter entitled Vidura's Talks with Maitreya in the third canto. Thank you very much. So, I hope you all have understood what is the genesis as per the Sanatan Dharma, as per Srimad Bhagavatam, what is actually how everything came into existence. I think it's one of the bewildering questions always being asked, and there's so much speculation. What is our level of speculating is um, definitely not going to scratch the surface of the absolute truth, because absolute truth cannot be understood by speculation, but can be heard by the Lord and um, his assistants, his servants, through which we can appreciate his greatness. So this particular chapter is continuation from yesterday. In this context, we will go through a very high level just for us to know, okay, there is because sarga visargascha, sarga creation, and then now we are talking about um, how is the whole, the first part, the primary creation happened. This is what is mentioned here in the third canto. We are in the 25th verse. hmm. Of course, I might say I'll take only 10 minutes, so don't worry. But I want to emphasize the need of reading the purports, because the purports are very, very elaborate in to explain how these creations, the intricacies are there. And but essence, if you read the last three verses, the purports of Prabhupada, it can also give the importance of why are we reading Bhagavatam especially, and what is the purpose of these chapter here for us. So it said the Lord, the perfect seer, through the agency of Maya, which works as both the cause and effect, Sat Asat Atmika, creates the entire material manifestation. So how is it created is mentioned here, and I mean, I'll not repeat all those verses, but I will say that Karanada Shai Vishnu, yeah, who is Mahavishnu, the Lord Swaamsha, his glance impregnates Jiva into material nature. How? This is mentioned. Vishnu, from Vishnu, there are these two elements. The Supreme Lord glances on the sum total of material energy. Huh? The sum total of material energy, which is Maya, hmm, and infuses it with time, Kala. So there is three elements here. The Lord, has created two separate elements, which is time and material energy. So the material energy infused with time, which is glanced by the Lord, that is what the agitation that happens. Yeah? The agitated equilibrium state, which is pradhana, hmm, then produces mahat tattva. So this material nature under the infusion of time, and because of the agitation of this infusion which is created by the Lord, is creating this mahat tattva. Mahat tattva again, when it is touched by the sattva, it has one effect. When it is touched by the rajas, that it has another effect. So it is mentioned that um, the agitated equilibrium state, pradhana, then produces mahat tattva. A state which, although has all three modes, is predominated by goodness and passion due to jnana and kriya shakti. There is jnana shakti and kriya shakti. Because of these two shaktis, mahat tattva is predominated by goodness and passion. Very little is ignorance, but in that little ignorance, we are already bewildered in Kali Yuga. This state further transforms into ahankara, which is predominated in tamas shakti. The ahankar that we have is that is already saying aham akar, having this I has a form which is not spiritual but material form, is because of ignorance. This state produces three energies called jnana shakti, derived from sattva guna, vaikarika, then kriya shakti, derived from rajoguna, or mm, tayajasina, Taijasani. This is what is used in the shloka, in the verse. And Dravya Shakti, derived from Tamoguna. Dravya Shakti has the capacity to produce five gross elements, which is Kriya Shakti produces the senses, Jnana Shakti produces the predominating deities called Devatas. What do you call this? Forgot. Sense Devatas. Mm, um, the the lord of each sense organ. Anyway, it will come later. So at each level of transformation, the lord's energy in the form of time produces subsequent state of transformation. Hmm? So, this is what we can see. I mean, when we were reading in the second canto, fifth chapter, yeah, of course, we are reiterating in the third canto, fifth chapter, but the idea is that the source of everything is the Supreme Lord, and the Lord is expanding Himself as Swa-amsha. Here we saying the Lord's Swa-amsha, which is Karanadakshay Vishnu, and His glance upon the material nature that produces from a inactive or dormant pradhana state to a mahat tattva, and then which has influence of the three modes, has three different effects. And this from Jnana Shakti comes Adi Daiva, and from Kriya Shakti Adhyatma, and from Dravya Shakti is Adi Bhuta. And from Adhyatma comes 10 senses and intelligence, and Adi Daiva, mind, and 10 sense Devatas. Pradhana, what I forgot that name. Predominating deities. Adhipatis. Yeah, right. Adhipatis. So, and then from Adi Bhuta comes five Tanmatras and five which are elements. And in that way, total 16 material elements are created. So, this gives us a very good understanding. So to say that the material world just didn't come like that. We can see how systematically everything came, and each substance has its own property when it comes to sound. From where is it coming? From its earth. The element of smell is coming. So all these things are described in this. And prayers by the demigods are interesting, where the demigods are saying the demigods are expansions of the lords in a way that they have come out like all of us. Also they have also come out of from the Lord, but they wanted to find how best they can serve the Lord, and through which they can do their responsible service of ruling the particular senses. So it says, your lotus feet are like an umbrella for surrendered souls. Prapanna, tapopasama, reliever, by which they throw off all miseries. And here he says suffering is due to the ignorance and knowledge alleviates ignorance. So that's why they are asking, please give us knowledge. So overwhelmed by tapatraya, the jivas can never have any happiness. Therefore, we all take shelter of the shade of your lotus feet, and vanquishes sinful reactions when we take shelter of you. Marganti tat, sorry, Marganti etat mukha padma needhai. And it goes further is you reveal us the knowledge and detachment and award us courage and remembrance and qualify us qualified and unqualified candidates for the shelter of the lotus feet is mentioned here, that one who thinks that I am great or I am this materialistic understanding, here are offensive persons. Whereas pure devotees can see your lotus feet as their only aim is to relish your activities. Simply by drinking the nectar of Krishna Katha, verse number 46, and with earnest devotional service, one easily achieves complete knowledge, renunciation, and attains Vaikuntha. पानेन ते देवकथा सुधाय प्रवृद्ध भक्त्या विशदाय स याति ये vairagya saram pratilabhya bodham, everything is achieved. Jnana is not so great, but bhakta can attain that. Why? Because jnanis by dint of mental concentration and knowledge also enter in you, which is Sahija Mukti. But for devotees it is very easy. Huh? So, and finally, they are saying, we are offering prayers so that you please enlighten us so that we can take care of our duties of protecting everything in all directions. We are disunited. You created us for the sake of creation, but because we are disunited, we cannot act concertedly by for your pleasure. So enlighten us. You are the origin of all demigods, oldest and unchanged. You are unborn yet impregnated the external energy with the semen of the total living entities. So everyone is coming from the Lord. Kindly award us your kind directions, your perfect knowledge and potency, so that we can render you service from which we are created. So these are the prayers. As I said, I'll stop here, but I would want to highlight the last verses, purports, in case if, oh, I've closed it. Okay, I have it here. If you have 5 minutes more, so that to understand what is the greatness of this particular chapter is summarized in the last, let's say only the last purport. The Lord creates this material world and impregnates the material energy with the living entities who will act in the material world. All these actions have a divine plan behind them. Yeah, so please be attentive. The plan is to give the conditioned souls who so desire it a chance to enjoy sense gratification. What is the plan of the Lord? Because we desire to enjoy sense enjoyment, we want desired for us. So the Lord, the plan is to give the conditioned soul who so desire a chance. So the first thing is Lord has given chance. But there is another plan behind the creation to help the living entities realize that they are created. Again, be careful because this is very nice, very, I would say the summary, no, the conclusion of all what we do. But there is another plan behind the creation. What is it? To help the living entities realize that they are created for the transcendental sense gratification of the Lord and not for their individual sense gratification. Yeah. So there are two things. First thing is giving us what we want, but at the same time, using the opportunity to bring us to the purest consciousness that we should be well happy enough, yeah, if we are blissful enough, if we are satisfying the senses, the transcendental gratification of the Lord. That is the goal. This is the constitutional position of the living entities. The Lord is one without a second, and He expands Himself into many of His transcendental pleasures. What are they? All the expansions, which is Vishnu Tattva, Jiva Tattva, Shakti Tattva, are different offshoots from the same one supreme. The Jiva Tattva are separated expansions of Vishnu Tattva. And although the Jiva Tattva have different potencies, they are all meant for the transcendental sense gratification of the Supreme Lord. And now we want to find why all this happened. Some of the Jivas, however, wanted to lord it over material nature in imitation of the lordship of the personality of Godhead. Regarding when and why such propensities overcame the pure living entities, it can only be explained that the Jiva Tattvas have infinitesimal independence, and that due to misuse of this independence, some of the living entities have become implicated in the conditions of cosmic creation and are therefore called Nitya Baddhas or eternally conditioned. The expansions of Vedic wisdom also gives the Nitya Baddhas, the conditioned living entities, a chance to improve, and those who take advantage of such transcendental knowledge gradually regain their lost consciousness of rendering transcendental service of the Lord. For that matter, I think I'll just conclude with the last, no, I mean, few more, but last, most important. We want to know who are these demigods. Here say the demigods are the entrusted leaders of the conditioned souls. As some of the old prisoners in the government jail are entrusted with some responsible work of prison management, so the demigods are improved conditioned souls acting as a representative of the Lord in the material creation. Such demigods, again, request your attention. Such demigods are the devotees of the Lord in the material world, and when completely free from all material desire to lord it over the material energy, they become pure devotees. Yeah, which means the demigods can also have influence of the modes of nature, or they are not yet pure. But once they are completely free from material desire, they become pure devotees and have no desire but to serve the Lord. Therefore, any living entity who desires a position in material world may desire so in the service of the Lord and may seek power and intelligence from the Lord as exemplified demigods in this purpose particular verse. One cannot do anything unless he is enlightened and empowered by the Lord. So I'll conclude here, which says the spiritual, similarly, any conditioned soul may also engage in the service of the Lord under the guidance of an expert spiritual master and thus gradually become freed from entanglement of material existence. The spiritual master is the manifested representative of the Lord, and anyone who puts himself under the guidance of a spiritual master and acts accordingly is said to be acting in the terms of Buddhi Yoga, as explained in Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, that are the last verses. Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahushaka hi anantasya buddhayo vyavasayinam. Thank you so much for your time. Okay. So as I said, please, if one is very interested in this field to understand how everything's got created, and if you know what is Bible saying in the Genesis, and is it matching, yeah, you can even do a comparative study and to understand, yeah, again, we can't just simply start speculating on it, and we can't simply conclude on something, but nevertheless, we can appreciate the detailed explanation that is given about the creation, and yeah, move forward, because ultimately it's not that we don't want to stuck in this, but we actually want to get hooked in the leelas of the Lord. Yeah, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Any questions?
Thank you, Prabhuji, for explanation. I have a very quick question. So
Mm-hmm.
the two aspect you mentioned here, that of the reason behind creation of this Mahatattva, the the cosmic and the material manifestation. The second is fine, understood. God, Supreme God, created it just to let the living, the Atma to understand that this life is not for sense gratification, but for our spiritual progress.
Mm-hmm.
But the first was, you said it's desire to enjoy this material creation. So does it mean that even after living in the spiritual realm, maybe in Vaikuntha Loka,
Mhm.
the jivas have desire to
It,
enjoy the material creation?
if you want the bitter truth, there is always independence. There is always independence, and yeah, the good thing is that it's very, very infinitesimal, very, very small. Yeah. So even I the freedom what we have in one way is sometimes we see na Brahmaji is thinking himself, oh no, gopis are saying, hey Brahmaji, what did you do that you have this kept this eyelids because it is closing sometime and for that moment we can't see the Lord. Hmm? So there is always that uh, small piece of freedom that we now understand, appreciate the greatness of devotion, and because we have Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhi, the Buddhi is now corrected. And so we know, right? If one makes a mistake, then he is more vigilant than a person who may not do it. So the chances of we falling again may be very less compared to the last time whenever we did it. But there is a chance because Lord doesn't want to take away that independence, though that is small. Yeah.
Yes, got it. Thank you.
Hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Before we close the call, let me first shut down